The original game plan. When my phone rang at 10 minutes past 4 on Thursday, I knew what the message would say, but I looked anyway. I saw that it was from my private investigator, Emerson Burke. Emerson Burke. She's been served. My wife was Martha Harrington. In addition to being a wife, mother, sister, daughter, and friend, she was also a senior partner at Willington & Compton, a prestigious law firm in Hartford. As senior partner, Martha's responsibilities included managing the affairs of the 7 junior partners. She held 2 mandatory meetings per week for the junior partners, on Monday mornings at 10 o'clock and Thursday afternoons at 4 o'clock. Each meeting started exactly on time. Anyone who was late felt Martha's wrath throughout the meeting. The sheriff who served Martha with the divorce papers interrupted the meeting at 2 minutes past 4 on Thursday and did as he was ordered. "Mrs. Harrington, your husband wants a divorce. You have been officially served." After 23 years of marriage, I knew my wife well. She was utterly humiliated after being served in front of her own staff. Despite the anger that gripped Martha, she did not rush home. Instead, she closed herself in her office and began going over, as only an experienced attorney can do, every word in the divorce petition. I knew that a first reading of the served documents would not give my wife all the answers she needed. I listed the classic irreconcilable differences as the reason for divorce. Martha exhaled a sigh of relief when she read that adultery was not listed as a reason for divorce. She suspected that I knew something about her long-term affair with Michael Kinsley, a married, 29-year-old associate of the firm. As for property, in the divorce, we must divide the proceeds from the sale of the 7,300 square foot, 678 square meter house and our summer home on the banks of the Connecticut River. Martha keeps her pension, and I keep mine. The bank and checking accounts will be divided after all debts are paid off. We each made a fair amount of money, so there was no need for alimony. What confused her when she got to the end of the legal documents was that the very successful engineering firm we owned for the 3rd generation was not listed as an asset. Martha knew my divorce attorney by reputation and had herself recommended her to several friends in need of this type of service. She had said many times over the years that my attorney was a shark, so she was surprised that someone so well respected in legal circles could be so careless as to not mention this business. I knew she would suspect a catch, but would be stumped, not knowing what it was. Martha reread the documents in detail to be sure that Michael Kinsley, her love buddy, was not mentioned in them. She then called an emergency meeting of her most trusted partners and associates. They all went through the papers and together began to come up with an initial game plan to deal with her cuckold husband. With me. What was my life before? My name is Chris Harrington. I met Martha at the University of Connecticut. She was in her 2nd year of law school, and I was finishing my doctorate in mechanical engineering. We started dating a week after we met and quickly became a couple. On our 3rd date, after a delicious dinner at a restaurant, while we were walking to the car, Martha suggested, "Chris, invite me to your apartment and I'll get naked for you." We made love and kissed for the rest of the weekend. I couldn't get enough of her. We made love every day. Sometimes it was quick. Other times we spent hours exploring each other's bodies, leaving not an inch untouched. Our sex life was fantastic and included risky lovemaking in bathrooms, in restaurants, or at parties we attended together. Nothing was off limits except Martha's world-class ass. We both agreed that we would never include others in our sex life and would remain an exclusive couple. We officially reaffirmed our vows to each other when we swore to love, honor, cherish, and remain faithful to each other at our wedding, which took place 2 weeks after we both received our degrees. Our wedding was quite large. It was held in Martha's hometown of Portland, Maine. The reception at the wedding venue was held under the awnings on a warm, clear summer night on the rocky coast of Maine. We honeymooned in Aruba and returned without any tan lines on our bodies. Martha applied to several Hartford law firms before she graduated, and 2 weeks after our return, she was offered jobs in Willington & Compton. We spent the next 2 decades falling more and more in love, raising 2 wonderful children and balancing career and family. I took over the reins of our family business and bought my father's stock when he retired 12 years ago. Martha became a junior partner in his law firm 7 years after starting and a senior partner in her 16th year. Life was great. until the shit in the toilet came out. A little over 3 years ago, I received an anonymous letter at the office. The envelope was addressed to me with the words "personal and confidential" scribbled at the bottom. Inside the envelope was a folded piece of notebook paper with the words, "Your wife is making love to Michael Kinsley," and a picture of Martha and Michael in the doorway of some motel. I hired a good private investigator, and within 2 months, I had sufficient evidence of Martha's infidelity. After another month of thinking, planning, and pretending to be a loving friend and devoted husband to Martha, I assembled my team. The team included my detective, my divorce attorney, my business attorney, and my personal accountant. I laid out to them what I wanted to do about the situation and explained to the group that it could be several years before things worked out the way I wanted them to. Their job was to confirm at every turn that my actions were legal and could not be used against me in the divorce. What happened to my life after? The second message from my private investigator came at 10 minutes past 6 that afternoon. Michael Kinsley had been served. 2 weeks earlier, Emerson had met with Rachel Kinsley. He shared with her what the 3-year investigation had turned into and the overwhelming evidence of an affair between my wife and her husband. The detective recommended to her my divorce attorney, who would be happy to take on her case. I realized that all the plans that Martha's group in Willington and Compton had come up with to fight my divorce petition had been rejected because Michael's wife had listed adultery as the reason for her divorce. Her divorce petition included a detective's report, photographs, and videos. It was a very thorough package of evidence. The garage door of our house rattled at 10 minutes past 8 in the evening. It had been 4 hours since Martha had been served, and I silently wondered if her war council would overtake my 3-year planning. I sat at the head of our 10-person dining table. A second chair was placed at the opposite end, and the other 8 chairs had all been stowed by me in the basement. I prepared a glass of her favorite red wine for Martha and placed it on the table in front of her seat. When I heard the door from the garage to the kitchen open and Martha called out to me, I took my first sip of the slightly chilled bourbon. The tapping of a woman's heels on the floor told me that she first looked into the family bedroom, then my office, and finally the living room before I saw her in the kitchen doorway. Martha looked at me carefully, then looked all around the kitchen and walked over to a chair at the far end of the table. As she sat down, she reached for her glass, thanked me for the wine, and took a big sip. Several minutes passed before she spoke. "I don't want a divorce." "I know, but I don't want a cheating wife as my wife." "Chris, please, let's have an adult conversation. Yes, I had an affair, but I'm not a cheater," I objected. Needless to say, I had plenty of evidence of how well Martha had been used at least once a month for the past few years, and yet she had never once given me the pleasure of doing the same. I could see that Martha was ready to pounce on me but held back. Her face reddened and she gasped for breath with her mouth. I watched in silence as she slowly calmed down. "Why would you want to destroy Michael's family? He has 2 wonderful children who will now grow up without a father." I had to suppress a laugh, shake my head, and calmly reply, "Did you see Rachel Kinsley? She was knocked out, but she was able to get back up. Her kids will have a new father soon, and I'm guessing he won't be an unfaithful asshole like your love toy." I was quiet for a bit, and then continued, "Why don't I care about this piece of shit's family? He didn't care about anything that involved my family, except your sloppy, old body." Martha clenched her jaws and hissed, "I'm going to politely ask you to speak to me in an adult manner. Your vulgar language won't help." I cracked a smile, which I knew made her nervous. "Martha, I'm not trying to help the situation. If you don't like my language, you can get up and leave. I swear on all that is holy, I won't stop you from leaving." Martha didn't budge, and I knew she would. "How long have you known?" Instead of answering her question, I looked at the papers I had placed in front of me before Martha arrived. I picked up a copy of the anonymous letter that had been delivered to my office and pushed it across the desk. Martha pulled out a short letter and a photograph. After examining them, she looked at the front of the envelope and read the postmark. 3 years? You've known for 3 years and yet you've done nothing?" I grinned. "Believe me, I've done a lot, Martha. You had a 4-hour meeting at work today to prepare for this conversation we're having, and I had 3 years to prepare." When I finished that last sentence, I saw a shadow of concern come over Martha's face. But I didn't feel like delving into the subject right now. For example, we haven't had a love affair since I found out. Other than a kiss on the cheek, we almost never have intimate contact. It's been 3 years since you and I had a tender hug and you didn't even notice it. I thought you had lost interest in love. That comment made me laugh to my heart's content. I've only lost interest in love with you. Martha thought for a few seconds. Haven't you made love in 3 years? I smiled from ear to ear. I haven't made love in 3 years. With you. I had as much love as I wanted. Leaning back in her chair, Martha sat stunned, looking at me. Meanwhile, I continued, the difference between us is that I have proof that you've been used everywhere you can and can't be used. Photos and videos. You don't have the same evidence against me. Chris, I love you, and I always have. Spending time with Michael meant nothing. It was just stress relief, especially after you stopped making love to me. Don't start, Martha. Your 3-year-long weekly affair is your fault. Don't you dare blame me. It took her a full minute to calm down, and then she continued. In spite of everything, I love you, and I know you love me. You're wrong, Martha. For 3 years, you have lied to me constantly. You broke our wedding vows and cheated on me. You humiliated me in the worst possible way. It took some time for the love to fade, but I don't love you anymore. In fact, I don't even like you anymore. The tears that Martha had been holding back all this time sprang from her eyes. She jumped to her feet and ran out of the room. I didn't follow her, knowing she'd be back soon, and most likely she'd be back in attack mode. I wasn't wrong. Before returning, Martha changed into jeans and a blouse, sat down and filled her glass from the bottle of wine I'd left on her end of the table. Chris, I think we really need to rethink things. I have a great team in my office, and you're going to lose a lot with an outside divorce attorney. I know Sharon Brown, Sharon was my attorney, is a good lawyer, but I've already found some glaring errors in the petition she prepared. If we can't come to some sort of resolution on how you and I can move forward, I'm going to put my team on you. My smiles were clearly having an effect on Martha. I smiled broadly again. The difference between your team and my team is that even this morning your team didn't exist. My team has been slowly and methodically implementing my plan for the past 3 years. Your team will only start the war tomorrow, and my team's work is already done. I let that sink into Martha's brain before continuing. I catch you saying that you love me. I don't know how that's even possible due to 3 years of deception, but I'll take your I love you. I can almost guarantee that by the time we get divorced, you'll hate me to the core. The funny thing is, everything you're gonna hate me for has already happened. You just don't know it yet. You'll never be able to turn our children against me, Martha screamed. Calm down. I would never try to turn the kids against you. In fact, I haven't even talked to our kids yet. I want to call them this weekend, and the parents and all the siblings. I'm going to tell them that I filed for divorce because of your long-term affair. I'm going to tell my kids and my family that I want them to treat you with respect, and I hope they continue their relationship with you, but that is entirely up to them. If anyone doesn't believe the depth of your betrayal, I suggest they read the detective's report. I suspect you won't want them to see it, so you can just confirm your betrayal. Martha hated to lose. She was beginning to realize that with each of my verbal salvos, she was falling further behind and losing more ground. Instead of backing down, however, she exploded. I'm going to take your fucking company away from you. Here now began the first material half of my plan to take Martha down. She expected the threat to my firm to be her ace up her sleeve, but instead, I directed her attack at herself. My company? What kind of company is that? She looked at me as if I had grown 2 heads and grinned. Precision engineering. I'll take her for myself. My grin lasted for a while. In fact, she shouted before I answered. What? What are you grinning about? I spoke in the most condescending voice I was capable of. Honey, don't you remember? 2 years ago, we sold this company to the Swedes. What? That's illegal. It's illegal, and I'm gonna get your ass. The company is a family asset, and I didn't agree to the sale. I didn't say you agreed to the sale. You did, however, give me an extended power of attorney for everything to do with the company. Actually, your firm gave it to me. I used the power of attorney to make the sale and invest the money in overseas accounts. Every year, you personally signed our family tax documents that clearly spelled out this sale and the movement of money. And good luck finding that money after 2 years. Martha was concussed. She sat there, her mouth moving like a fish blowing bubbles. I got up, left the room, and went upstairs to the guest room. Locking the door, I stripped down to my underwear, sat on the edge of the bed, and finally cried. The next morning at 3 o'clock, the alarm clock rang. I got out of bed, showered, and headed to the airport to fly to Florida. In preparation for bachelorhood, I bought a condo in Clearwater Beach, across the bay from Tampa. That fateful evening, I shocked Martha. As I expected, it took Martha and her legal team several weeks of reviewing legal documents and financial statements before they realized that some $34 million from the sale of the company no longer fell under the jurisdiction of U.S. Bank and therefore would not be part of the divorce settlement. Yes, this was a real shock to her. Judging by family traditions throughout our married life, the religious-spiritual half of my plan was going to work 5 weeks later on the Friday after Thanksgiving. Black Friday. Growing up, Martha was very close to Edith, her maternal grandmother. Edith always arranged weekly outings just for the two of them. As the decades passed, Martha took the initiative to keep them together. In recent years, Martha traveled to Portland, Maine at least once a month to visit her grandmother and briefly pick her up from the nursing home. They would eat lunch together and, as long as Edith's health permitted, go to the mall. A family tradition, started by Edith and continued by Martha for the past 15 years, was that the family creche of nearly 175 years old, passed down to Martha by inheritance, was always displayed in the house at Christmas. Every year, on the Friday after Thanksgiving, Martha would go to the local bank and pull out of a very large safe the 24 figurines that made up the nativity scene. Each figurine was individually encased in a velvet box. The children and I would go outside and pick up 2 12-foot Christmas trees, 366 cm. Our family needed a whole day to completely decorate the house. The highlight of the overall decoration was the creche, in the center of which was a table covered with straw, placed between 2 trees. 3 rows of flowers were placed in front of the table to protect the incredibly valuable figurines from the wandering hands of our guests. When everything was ready, Martha would stop in front of her favorite creche, and tears would invariably flow down her cheeks. During the holiday season, Martha cried every time she looked at this scene. She once confided to me that it was her happy place, and it reminded her of all the joys in her life. This scene overwhelmed her with memories of the past. We would leave the decorations in place until the day it was time to go back to work after the holiday season. On that day, the whole family would dismantle and put away the ornaments. Martha gently packed each figurine and placed the boxes of them on the kitchen table. The next day, she would stop by the bank on her way to work and put the boxes back in the safe for safekeeping until they were needed the following year. Most of my plan to divorce Martha didn't require the past 3 years. All but one element was completed within the first year. For the past 3 years, I had planned my business trips for the beginning of the new year. Martha knew that my flight usually didn't leave until around noon. So instead of going to the office to work, I would start my day in my home office. For the first 2 years, Martha and I had breakfast together on the first day of work after the Christmas holidays. Then I would help her carry the boxed figurines to the car. She would wish me all the best, kiss me on the cheek, and drive to the bank and from there to work. This year, finally, circumstances came together in the way I had been waiting for more than 2 years. As we were getting dressed, Martha asked me, "Chris, can you do me a favor?" I looked at her and replied, "Sure. I have a lot of work waiting for me this morning. Do you have time to drop off the figurines at the bank before you head to the airport?" I thought for a second and smiled. That will be easy enough. I'll take care of it. As I had guessed, the message from Martha arrived shortly before noon on Friday, just after Thanksgiving. Martha: "Where the hell are my figurines, asshole?" I laughed so hard that coffee flew out of my nose. At that moment, a naked Kate, my 38-year-old divorced neighbor, emerged from my bedroom in time to see a stream of coffee flying out of me. She laughed with me. After finding out what happened, she asked a simple question. Do you absolutely have to respond to this message, or will you have time to satisfy me quickly before I leave? We had already made love after we woke up this morning, but I suspected that with Kate's impressive skills, I could go another round. Satisfied, Kate quickly showered, got dressed, kissed me goodbye, and left for her house. After she left, I checked my phone and found several more messages and unanswered phone calls from Martha, her family members, and our children. Although I didn't want to talk to Martha, I decided it would be much easier to call her than to talk to everyone else. What the hell took you so long to call me back? Martha hissed, answering my call. I was making love to one of our neighbors. Since we had already made love in the morning, it took a while before I could do it a second time. You remember how it used to be with us, don't you, Martha? Martha took a pause to calm down and continued. I want my creche, and I want it now. Of course you do. Go to the bank and get it. Chris, I know you didn't take the figurines to the bank. The last access record to the safe was when I took the figurines out last Christmas. Before she could continue, I asked, So why didn't you return them this year? As you remember, you agreed to take them to the bank instead of me. Please, Chris, please, give me back my treasure. I'm sorry, Martha, but you're wrong. I remember putting the boxes in the trunk of your car before I left for work, just like I do almost every year. What are you trying to get out of me, Martha? She sobbed. Oh my God, why are you doing this to me? I know you're angry, but why are you being so horrible to me? It's amazing that you refuse to take any responsibility for your fucking life. Goodbye, Martha. I cut the conversation short and decided to address everyone who called me today. I called them with the same message. Martha is trying to cause me problems as the court date approaches. I don't know if anyone believed me, but I was sure that no one had proof that I was the one in possession of the statues. Our divorce was finalized 14 months after I filed. Martha fought me every step of the way and put up roadblock after roadblock. She got the police and insurance investigators involved in the disappearance of her creche. My only comment about it was, as I recall, I put all 24 boxes of figurines in the trunk of Martha's car. I'd be surprised if any of them believed me, but they couldn't prove that I was the one who took Martha's family heirloom. Martha and I saw each other a few times at events our children attended. We were reserved with each other, but tried to keep our distance. 14 years after our divorce, I learned that Martha was unsuccessfully trying to fight an aggressive form of breast cancer. Martha's days were coming to an end, and our daughter called me and asked if I would like to visit her mother while I had the opportunity. When I walked into the hospice room the next day, Martha was asleep. I watched her for almost an hour. Several times I had to hold back tears as I strolled down memory lane. I must have been thinking hard because I flinched when I heard her voice. You know, you were right. I looked at the smiling face of my one true love and smiled back. Of course I was. I was always right. But out of curiosity, what are you talking about? Her faint smile flickered as she spoke. You told me that my love for you would turn to hate by the end of the divorce. After all the horrible things I did to you and our family, I'm ashamed to admit, but I hated you for a long time. Just like I hated you, Martha? Her smile returned and we laughed together. Chris, do you still hate me? I thought for a moment. No. Hate takes too much energy. After a while, I didn't have the energy for it. What about you? Martha started nodding in agreement before I even finished my words. I agree. After a while, the hatred stops being worth the effort. We talked for about 2 hours. I was finishing remembering a very old story about when our children were little when I looked up and saw that Martha had fallen asleep. My first inclination was to leave, but I changed my mind when I realized that this was probably the last time I would ever see her alive. After sleeping for an hour, Martha woke up and we continued to reminisce. We were both laughing like fools when our son Brian walked into the room, followed by his wife Sue and our 3 grandchildren. I knew right away that Brian was excited that I was visiting his mom. I didn't stay long because I wanted Brian and his family to be able to have Martha's undivided attention. I said goodbye and kissed Martha gently on the lips. Then I turned to leave, but Martha called out to me, "Chris, can I ask you a favor?" After I gave her a brief nod of agreement, Martha looked at Brian. "Chris, give your father and I a minute." Brian and Sue gathered their children and walked out. When we were alone, Martha continued, "I would like Brian's family and Rose's family to take turns showing the nativity scene. Do you think that would be possible? Can you help make it happen? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Black Friday, 2018. While many families spent the Friday after Thanksgiving looking for bargains at the local mall, my entire family spent the day at my daughter's house. Rose's family, along with her brother Brian and his family, as well as her grandfather, me, spent the day decorating the house. Candles and wreaths were lit on every window. Lights were lit on the bushes surrounding the front yard, and Christmas trinkets were scattered in every room on the first floor of the house. We all agreed that the creche display case would be in Rose's family room. We decorated 2 large 12-foot trees outside and placed a table covered with straw between them. In front of the table, 3 rows of flowers served as a protective barrier, and 24 paintings of Martha's nativity were spread out on the table. Before I left for the evening, I took one last look at the figurines. Brian and Rose joined me. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I remembered Martha from years ago. How she had stood in front of the creche, crying and saying that this was her happy place. The end!